it from Yahoo Finance and get historical data for any stock you want. So here's what it looks like if you're actually going to do it. You can put in whatever you want to put in, Microsoft, MSFT, and I'll just make up some dates. So, well, these ones will work for now. So from 11/1 of 2013 to 10/1 of 2014, and hit get data. It'll pull the data from the internet. You can see that it's doing that, and there it is. And so you can see Microsoft's right now, as of, or this was October 1st of 2014, they had a price around 45, 46, and then this is the daily return, their average return, their standard deviation. If I wanted to pull it up for something else, let's say like Home Depot, HD, same dates. You can say 91, about 92, their stock price, their average return of 9%, 0.09%, sorry, and a standard deviation just shy of 1%. So show you how to do this. It's really not that hard at all. I'll just erase this. All right, so we'll just start from blank workbook. So it's a brand new sheet. We're going to need to have the developer tab available. It's not a normal thing to have in Excel. It's not started out that way. So if you need to add that in, you can click the flag key. Depending on your version of Excel, there'll be something up here to click. Maybe it'll say File or something like that. Excel Options, Show Developer tab in the ribbon. So for this is 2007 version, it's under Popular. But in the more recent versions, there will be Customize the ribbon, and it'll look something like this. And then over on this side, there's a little box to check that says Developer, and so you can click that. So we hit OK, and now Developer is enabled. We want to record a macro. We'll call this data get. And we can go over to data, and we want from text. And here we're not going to need this right now. We're actually going to go over to the internet. I use Chrome. You can actually do this from any browser. And go to finance.yahoo.com. Under quote lookup, you can pick anything you want. I like to start with Apple because it's an easy ticker to recognize when it's in a written code. So I'm going to Apple first, and then under the left-hand side, you can click historical prices. Don't worry about changing any of this because we're going to make it automatic later. Just scroll all the way to the bottom, and where it says download to spreadsheet, right-click, copy link address, go back to Excel, paste it under file name. This is under the import from text, the data on the data tab. Hit open, and now it's going to say, how do you want to import it? We want to do delimited, which means we're going to separate all of these numbers based on something. And so you can see here, this is called a CSV, comma separated file, CSV. And it says there's some numbers, a comma, some more numbers, a comma, some more numbers, and it just keeps going. And there's a bunch of commas. And that's how it decides to, delimited means it splits it up by those commas. So we'll go next, and it says, how do you want to split it up? Delimiter by comma. I like to click this, but it doesn't really matter. Next, under this tab, these are the different columns that we'll have. We'll hit general. We want that one to be a date because it is, and it's in the format of year, month, day, and that'll help Excel recognize what these numbers actually are. The rest of them we can leave as general. If you don't like something, like volume isn't super helpful most of the time, you can actually say do not import this column, and it'll get rid of that one completely. I'm going to leave everything in there for right now, so I'm going to leave everything as general except for the first column. I'll make the year, month, day. Then I'll hit finish. Where do I want to put it? Into cell A1 of sheet 1. That really won't matter too much for this, but usually you want to tell what sheet to put into just because it makes things cleaner. If you had been on sheet 2 or something, you might end up importing it to sheet 2, and if you're not looking at the right one, you might not notice that it got imported. So sheet 1, A1, and the dollar signs mean keep it there. It means don't let it move around. Always put it in A1. So hit OK. It'll import the data. Here's that. It's downloading it right now. You'll see it come in just a second. Perfect. So there's our data. Now we can go and stop recording. And now we want to make this automated, but well, it's already automated, but right now it's only Apple and all of their historical. If I scroll all the way to the bottom, all the way to 1980, we want it to be something other than Apple. We want that to be able to change on however we decide, and we want the dates to be able to be changed. So if we go over here, I'm going to go in column J. I'm going to call it ticker, and then we want start date and end date. So that way we know what we want. And so right now it's AAPL and it's some random dates. So let's change this. Let's make it, I've already done Microsoft. Let's make it Google, GOOGL. Google recently changed its, as of the time of this video, recently changed its ticker symbol. So it used to just be GOOG, but now it has an L at the end. A start date, we're going to put 1/1 of 13. Actually, let's do 14, so we're not getting too much data at once. And then I'll do today's date, October 27th of 14. Cool. So those are our two dates, and the ticker that we're going to use is Google. If we go to macros, this is what we just recorded, data get. If we run it, it'll just pull Apple's data and put it here, and we don't really want that. Oops. So we want to do data get, we want to do edit, and it'll come up with some code right here that we can use. So this is the code that says pull Apple's data and put it on the sheet. Don't be scared about looking at this. If you've never seen code written before, here's your first experience with it. It's not that scary, don't worry. First thing we're going to want to do is when we import new data, we're going to want to get rid of the old data that's already here. So everything that's right here, we're going to want to delete that for when we import new data, right? So we'll go here and we'll say range. A little tip, always write in lowercase, because if you spell it wrong, it'll tell you. But if you put it in capital, you won't notice it. I'll show you that in a second. Range, and we want A, or maybe columns. Columns looks better. Columns A through, and the colon symbol is through G dot clear contents. And see how all of that, except for the AG, all of that is lowercase. When I hit enter, it'll automatically capitalize it if I spelled it correctly. See how now it's all the C's are capitalized? That tells me that I spelled it correctly. If I did clear non-tense, if I spelled it wrong, it doesn't capitalize. And so that's how I know contents. And there you go. And so that's how I know that I spelled it correctly. Now, we're going to need to determine what our start date, our end date, and our ticker symbol are. So we're going to need ticker equals range K1, because that's in K1 right here. K, let's see, row 1, K. K1 is our ticker symbol. So that'll assign, ticker will now be Google, or GOOGL. And then we're actually going to need more than just start date and end date. We're going to need the actual month, day, and year. So we're going to need S day, I'll call that start date, S month, and S year, as well as end day, end month, and end year. I'm just abbreviating them S day, S month, S year, E day, E month, E year, because it's easier to type that short. So now we're going to say that the start day it's in cell K2. We can see that on the spreadsheet, but we're going to need just the day part of that. So day of range K2, and then we're going to need to close that last parentheses. And see how it capitalized it because I spelled all that right. And then we're going to need month of range K2 equals year of range K2. If you don't close the parentheses, it'll give you an error. See? So close parentheses to make sure. And then we need the end day. So now instead of K2, we're going to be using K3. So we say day of range K3 and month of range K3, and then equals year of range K3. I'm typing really fast and making a lot of typos. There we go. All right, so now we have all of our variables are assigned. Usually it's probably good code to do what's called a dim, which is assigning a variable. It's assigning some computer memory to say we want ticker as string, comma, S day, S month, S year, E day, E month, E year as long, which would be, or you can do int, which is integer, but long is nice. I like long better. They both kind of mean the same thing. There's a technical difference, but if you'd say dim these things as long, that means all of these things are going to be numbers, and ticker is going to be a string, which means a set of letters. So ticker is a set of letters because in this case it's 5 letters, and all of these things are going to be numbers because S day will be 1, S month will also be 1, and so you'll have some numbers there. The other thing we're going to need is, because of Yahoo Finance actually assigns January, the month of January, to be 0 instead of 1, so we'll need whatever month that we put in to be -1 on both of these cases, and that'll just make sure that when we put in January, we're pulling the number 0 out of Yahoo, which actually represents January. But in Excel, 1 represents January. So we just have to offset it by 1 in the month. Don't do anything for the day or year for either one of them, but the month has to be offset by 1. Cool. And then we scroll down to here, and we have, this is the URL. This is where when we copy and pasted that URL into the text, this is what we copied right here. And so it's realchartfinance.com CSV. And now instead of Apple, we're going to highlight AAPL because we're not pulling Apple anymore. We're pulling whatever ticker is going to be. And instead of AAPL, we're going to put quote and quote. And then between the ands, we're going to put ticker. And now if I click outside of this, you'll see that reset it. And so now the spacing is done. And so it's going to say that regular URL, and then in the place of where Apple was, we're going to say and ticker. And so D, which is 9. So this now we're going to have to set in our start and end time period. So we have month, day, year, and then month, day, year. See how those are broken up? You can see 9, 28, 14. This is the data that we pulled in. We're going to want to replace it with the data that we used here, right, in the K2 and K3. So 9, which is month. So we need quote and quote. In between the ands, we're going to put, this is our S, because it's the, no, I'm sorry, this is E. E month, right there. 28 is our quote and quote. E day. 2014 is our quote and quote. E year. And now here where this letter D is, we could actually change that to a W for weekly data or M for monthly data. I'm going to leave it as D right now, but if we changed it to an M, say, then instead of pulling every day for the past year, it will pull in every month, the first of every month. So now we have month here. This is our S month. So quote and quote S month. This 12 is going to be our quote and quote. It's going to be our S day. And lastly, 1980. 1980. I hit Control Z to undo that because I deleted too much. Quote and quote. And this becomes S year. And now I can go, we have an error in here somewhere, and it's because of my spacing. So it's a good idea to put a space between all of those and symbols so Excel can tell what the heck you're trying to type in, because sometimes it gets confused if you have too many things going on at once. So put some quotes between all of the, or some spaces between all of those and symbols, and now we're good. Cool. And so I'm going to scroll back over to the left. Here we have our destination, and we always want it to go into A1, so our spacing's right. We don't need to name our table anything in particular. We can delete that. You can leave this if you want, or you can delete it, and we can call it data table, if you spell it right, data table. Down here, when I changed those importing columns to month, day, year, or the YMD, year, month, day, that was number 5, and then when I left all those other ones general, those are 1. So this is saying every column import as general, except the first one, import as date. And if you wanted to not import a particular column, like the first one, which is, I think, the high or something, you can call that 9, and that'll tell it not to import. But we're going to leave it as 1 for now. And then this should be all that we need. So we'll pull in the data. You can go up here and click run. This is the play, and it should work, and we'll see if it works. So now it's going to pull some data. You can see it says Google right there. That's good. 9/27/14, which in 9, as far as Yahoo is concerned, is actually 10. So 10/27/14, and so this is Google's data. And so now we can put in a little button right here. If you hold down Alt, it'll draw it on the buttons or on the cells. We want to assign it data get. Hit OK. I'll call this historic prices. Click outside, and now if I click this, it'll do it. Let's try it with Home Depot. Click this. See, now it's this. Home Depot's at 95. Let's do Amazon. Amazon's currently priced at $289, so now we can get all that data. And if you wanted to do historic returns, we can do return as a %, and that equals the first cell divided by the one before it minus 1. And then we can click on that cell, and we can copy it down by double clicking on this little box at the bottom. See, there's a small square right there. So double click, then go home and call %. I can move the decimal over by clicking there. And those are our average returns. At the very bottom, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a div 0 error, so you can delete that one. And that's because there's no data after it, so it can't find a rate of return from nothing. Then if we want, we can go up here, we can say average return and standard deviation. And I'll open those up, and then so the average return is average, so equals average of that, and equals STDEV, which is standard deviation,